Despite nationwide pleas to cool things down after the second assassination attempt on Trump, Democrats and the liberal media are right back at it, treating the former president like he's some kind of unique threat. Hillary Clinton, never one to miss the spotlight, argues that the media isn't doing enough to paint Trump as a danger.
I don't understand why it's so difficult for the press to have a consistent narrative about how dangerous Trump is. The object in this case is Donald Trump, his demagoguery, his danger to our country and the world. Americans need to understand that they have to take Trump both seriously and literally. He has said what he wants to do. He and his allies with Project 2025, his desire to be a dictator.
Hillary's friends in the media couldn't wait to jump in, quick to twist the story and pin the blame on the GOP and Trump himself for the assassination attempt.
The Trump campaign is seizing on this apparent assassination attempt as a way to rile up his base.
Violent rhetoric in America in presidential campaigns has been unprecedented since Donald Trump first came onto the scene in 2016.
The violence is coming from them.
The former president certainly could do a lot to make himself safer.
If Donald Trump wants Kamala Harris and others to stop saying that he is a threat to democracy, then he should stop threatening democracy.
Quit blaming folks until you decide to take a look at what's coming out of your mouth.
Right now, you have a former president who, yes, has been the target of apparent assassinations twice, but is also an instigator of political violence.
All right, Jesse, they've called him Hitler. They say he's dangerous. He's an existential threat. And Hillary doesn't understand why it's so difficult to have a consistent narrative about how dangerous Trump is. What does she want, a bounty on his head?
She does. Fidel Castro, we tried to assassinate him. Dictator Mao, Stalin, we fought a Cold War against him. Mussolini, Hitler, we went to World War II against those guys. Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, two dictators we violently overthrew. So when you have a media industrial complex that repeats that this one politician is a dictator, it goes deep into the American subconscious that sees a dictator as someone that needs to be eliminated. And it's in our DNA as Americans, whether it's a king, an autocrat, or a dictator, to want to push them out of power because of what happened in the Revolutionary War. And you're inviting lost souls looking for a reason to live, to want to be a hero, to want to be a savior, to save democracy. And look at how the media is characterizing this guy, Ryan Ruth. They've called him a crusader for causes. They've called him a super citizen. They've said he has a sense of duty that's apparently driven him. Those aren't the things you call an assassin. Those are crazy things that should never be associated with a guy. Now, after the first assassination attempt, guy was a little opaque. And so Trump said, let's have a moment of unity for this country. And even Joe Biden said, let's calm things down. And then they went right back to it. And then you have a second assassination attempt. And Donald Trump has had it. You get two shots. That's enough. And he laid the blame squarely on the left. And instead of having a little bit of self-reflection, the left got defensive. And they said, no, you're responsible for people trying to kill yourself. And then Don Lemon says, basically, Trump needs to stop running or else he's going to get more bullets. That's crazy. We are in a danger zone right now, Judge Jeanine, and I'm really, really praying for the health and safety of this president.
You know, Harold, if Donald Trump's rhetoric is to be blamed for his own assassination attempts, if someone tried to assassinate, God forbid, Kamala, blaming Trump would be off the table, wouldn't it? I mean, he wouldn't be responsible for that, too, would he?
Good to be with you. I don't blame any specific person. I've tried to say over and over again that we live in a time where all of this seems to be being catalyzed and empowered by kind of a circular reinforcing media and social media. I think we live in a time where people are able to say things and hide behind pseudonames, hide behind a social media. things that would not have been said. People may have thought 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, but now people feel empowered to say them. We've all, unfortunately, around this table had things said about us and even things that sounded like the person wanted to be violent against us. This is a moment for everyone to take account for all of their words. I think there's a difference between tough, spirited, even critical narratives and language in campaigns. Greg said something yesterday how he didn't want to police, and he can, I may be paraphrasing it wrong, but he didn't want to police what people said or how they said it. We should be able to take that in public life. But we've reached a point where it is emboldening people and radicalizing people. I read some things about, I agree with you, that this guy tried to kill someone, and it happened to be the president of the United States. He seemed to, over a period of time, disagree with President Trump on some serious issues. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're radicalized to the point where you think it's okay to act on it, even this kid in Butler, Pennsylvania, something's wrong. And we all, I think, have to step back and try to understand what's happening here. And if there are things we can all do individually, we should all commit ourselves to trying to do that. But I'm with you. This guy tried to kill the president of the United States, and anyone that tries to characterize it any differently is lying to themselves, is lying to our political system, is doing a disservice to the conversation, a massive disservice, fatal disservice to the conversation we're trying to have about what indeed is a danger to our country.
You know, speaking of a disservice, Dana, you know, Wolf Blitzer says that the Trump camp is actually seizing on the assassination attempt as a way to rile his own base.
Yes, it goes back to that Politico headline I had that Republicans are outraged about the second assassination attempt, as if nobody else is, that if you're a Democrat, you wouldn't be outraged by it, which I hope is not true. But the victim blaming here is really off the charts. It's like Donald Trump wore a really short skirt to the putting green, therefore he deserved to possibly get assassinated. I mean, where have we heard that before? And then people would be outraged by it. And we're at this, I heard it described today as a civilizational crossroads. And there are many people on the left who have said, you know, it would be better if he just didn't exist. Yeah. Well, be careful if you get your wish, because your problems are not going to go away. And you need to try to beat him and the policies on the merits. And they're actually not trying to do that. We'll get into more of that later in the show.
How do you explain the fact, Greg, that the left is so nonchalant about this, that there are people who think America would be better off without Donald Trump?
Well, I would like to step back and take a look at the mentality, because I think Harold is right. This is like an endless game of rhetorical ping pong. Trump gets attacked. They say he's bad. He gets attacked again. They say he's worse. It's not going to change. I think it goes back to, well, there are two things. One, it's the sunk cost of your investment. Why continue with the rhetoric when you know there are destructive consequences? Because you've already invested so much time and effort in that. You've come too far in this mentality to stop now. How do you reconcile all those years of emotional and career investment in hating one person? Why do people stay at a lousy job? Why do people stay in a lousy marriage? Why do people persist in a bad political idea? It's because if you let it go, you feel like your life's been a waste. So you have people like Morning Joe can look positively embarrassing when he makes a statement, and the next day he'll double down on it because he can't let go. So you stay in it and you sink lower into this sunk cost instead of being smart, cutting your losses and chalking this waste of time up to experience. If you chalk it up to experience, it's not a waste of time. But also, I do think that this rhetoric is born from an evolutionary byproduct that's been turned on its head. Normal people, when they protect themselves and their loved ones, there are no ethical restraints. There are legal ones, but there are no ethical ones. You will break the law to protect your family, your children. You'll even break the law for your pet. The left turned this upside down. So there are no ethical restraints to protecting your ideas, your political ideas. It's not about how you feel about your kid or your parents. It's how you feel about climate, trans rights, a patch of land in the Middle East. These are not important issues to your family life or home life, but somehow it's been reversed. It's an inversion of concerns. So the most important issues in your life are pushed aside, and you've replaced it with these ideas that take over your life. You see this with activists. They're estranged from their family. Their friend circle is tiny. They struggle with jobs. They can't pay their rent. They can't pay their bills because this bigger mission has taken over their lives. You know, I must glue myself to the freeway. I must splatter paint on art. I must threaten to kill the president. It's as though they've taken the idea of no ethical restraint and applied it to larger ideas. I see Hitler everywhere, therefore I can kill Hitler.
Scary.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.